So welcome to chapter 7, I believe, of the Node Academy. Thank you all for those who contributed to this chapter, especially Eric. That's huge help with all the systemd files that I'm going to show off. And it's actually relatively easy to set up. So it does make some maintenance things more easy. I'll also explain that a bit in more detail. And everyone else who found little errors and made pull requests and sent me comments, that's very much appreciated. The thing we're going to show off today is just basic node maintenance at first. And then in the second half, we'll the node has to be rebooted, or if the node reboots itself for some reason, that there's like, zero downtime and the least amount of effort needed to set this up. So I'm first gonna go into my node. What I do at first is I often check how my node is doing with lncli get info. I am looking for whether I'm synced to the chain or synced to the graph, whether my channels are active up here. And that's pretty much like mainly what I'm interested in. I can also check Bitcoin CLI, which shows us like here, somehow there are very few connections here. Sometimes it's interesting to see how many people are connecting in, how many are connecting out. The other thing that we might want to do sort of semi-regularly, but usually not like super urgently, is to update our server. So that's the sudo apt update command, which kind of fetches all the latest versions from these various repositories. And then we can apply these updates with sudo apt upgrade, which in this case shows us that 6 new packages can be updated. It also shows us whether additional disk space is needed, in this case not. So I also expect this to go relatively quickly so that we can easily show it off. Sometimes you will see here some pop-ups asking you, like, especially if configuration files are changing, or if some other things. Usually it's just always okay to go with the defaults. We don't really have like a very complicated setup here. The next thing we're going to do is update Bitcoin. And in this case, kind of for simplicity reasons, I'm going to stop LND first. And then I'm going to shut down Bitcoin. I can theoretically also check if these are properly shut down. Here in the bottom, it's going to say shutdown complete. That's what I want to read. Same with the Bitcoin logs. Shutdown done. Great. That means everything has its order. No, like sometimes it could happen that some of these processes are just kind of hung in the background, and then we have to like kill them the hard way. But if you encounter these things, a restart is just as good. Just restarting the node doesn't take that much time. So first, we're going to get the latest Bitcoin code, which we have stored in our Git Bitcoin repository. And in this case, it's not going to show anything interesting because I only did that recently. A git pull is the command that fetches kind of all the latest packages. It will also here show if it finds any new versions, which I have recorded for you in here and what that looks like. Can I make this larger? Yes. So sometimes you see things like this here, a new tag. So in this case, there's v22 got a final tag, which means there will no longer be any updates to version 22. If there's a bug or if there's a problem, then you're on your own. But these older versions are sometimes still updated. For example, there's a version 23.2, 23 got an update to 23.2, 24 got an update to 24.1, and there's a new version out, version 25. And if we want to get version 25, we need to git checkout. And here we can kind of, or just by pressing we can already kind of see here all the options that we have. These are all the Bitcoin versions that have ever been released. And since they're somewhat ordered by alphabetically, we can here find the very latest. What this means is these are the release clients. RST stands for release client, and in the life cycle of both Bitcoin and LND, it's quite typical to, as the code kind of becomes final, as all the features are packaged together into whatever is supposed to go into version 25, there's a release client being released, which kind of creates the expectation that all the features that are in there, we expect them to also go into version 25. But if you still find a bug, or if you still find some kind of errors, or find something that's problematic, then please report it quickly, because we're going to update. And then people you can see sometimes here, version 23.0, for example, got one release client, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which probably meant that up until release client 4, people were finding bugs in there. Version 25 only had 2 release clients, so then you can usually also expect that in between release client 1 and 2, there's going to be some bug fixes. In between release client 2 and 25, these are usually quite minor. If we're running a Bitcoin node in production like we're doing here, then I would recommend to only install kind of the final versions, which we can do here with git checkout, and then we specify v25.0. Here we get the, here it has the tag final changes. And now what we would do here is we would now have to rebuild Bitcoin with make install, I believe. With make. So here with make, if I'm executing this, then it's going to go and it's going to take, in this case, I already made it. In your case, if you haven't yet built version 25, it's going to go through pretty much all the software again, everything that changes, and rebuild the program, which can take an hour or 2. That's the cost of building everything from source. Bitcoin is quite intensive in that. And to install it, we use sudo make install, which looks like this. And then as long as there are no errors here, we should be all good. And then we have the latest Bitcoin installed, which we can run immediately, Bitcoin D. We can again go through here the logs. So somewhere in here, might already have the version number. You're going to see that the logs look actually a little bit different. For example, this is now printed into different lines. So there are some visible changes just from the log. It's going through the last 6 blocks. So 1 block verified, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and then 6. And then I think already at this point we can exit the logs and run our get info command. And here in this line, version 25.0.0.0, we can see that we are running now the latest Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin is not very important to upgrade. You should do it once in a while, but you don't have to do it every month. You don't even have to do it every quarter. Bitcoin is quite slow moving and also long living software. It's a little bit different for LND. LND changes quite a lot. And also the Lightning Network changes quite a lot. So if you're a version behind or 2 versions behind in Bitcoin Core, then that's really no problem. And most things are going to work as you expect. But if you are 1 version behind in LND, that can already make quite a big difference. So in this case, I will recommend you to update to the latest, even though there are also some known bugs in here. But these unknown bugs are not if they were severe, they would be fixed right away. But there are also some bug fixes in there over the version that we installed. So we're also going to git pull the latest code in here. Git pull, I don't know what to do. This. I think, so this is now all the latest code. You can even see like what kind of files have been changed. And in this case, there are no new versions that it printed out here. We can also check what kind of versions for which there are tags. So again, this is ordered alphabetically and not numerically. So then the latest version, version 10.1 alpha is in here, which we can check out with version 0.10.1 alpha, and which we can then make with, so when we first installed it, we had to do make install. Now we can do, so as an upgrade mechanism, we can do make go install. And because we also want the command line interfaces, we're going to run this. This is, again, not going to take very long because I believe I already did it. So kind of remember, there's also a way to kind of do like a make clean, meaning even if you already built something, it's going to ignore the previous progress. So here you can see all the programs. It's not very pretty, but here all the sub-programs, the sign RPC, the wallet, the on-chain, the invoices, the watchtower, the neutrino, which is kind of not using a backend node, but rather using the Bitcoin network as a backend, the peers, and then later here comes LND, and later comes Lightning Terminal. Somewhere here is Loop, Pool, Taproot Assets, and the lit CLI, and so on. So this is already complete. And now we should be able to run nohub lit d and again. And if I now, wait, I'm going to look at the logs first. Where are my logs? These are the logs. Then, of course, I have the path wrong. Then it's going to end here at waiting for the wallet encryption password. So I need to type lncli unlock, type in my password, and hopefully, yes, successfully unlocked. And now I can see the log starting up. And if I want to, here you can already see the version, LND version is printed in here. This is good. These logs can move very, very quickly. I can also check lncli get info. I can see that I'm already synced to the chain and graph, not too surprising since I was not offline for very long, and my channel is already back up. And up here, I can also see the latest version. This is the version that I'm running. Now we come to, so this concludes the kind of the first parts of this class today. That's really all you need to know for node management and for kind of upgrading your node and maintenance. What I would recommend if you want to keep it at this is to write all the commands down needed to start, to get started. So if I were to now reboot this, then pretty much everything is dead, right? Like LND was running, Bitcoin was running, and now I rebooted and nothing is running. Hopefully the server will not take too long to reboot either. And what I would now recommend to write down is just have like a little text file somewhere, maybe in your documents, that just runs you down all these like steps that you just most commonly need. For example, if you do a reboot, kind of this is now in a clear state. This is kind of now an empty or kind of like a an empty server. And now what do we need to get this running? We need to type here Bitcoin D, and that starts Bitcoin D. Then you can type up how to look at the logs, which are here. And next, you need to start lnd or litd with no hub lit end, and you can write down what these logs are, just like so that you later don't have to like remember every single step in here. But you can also configure everything to start up automatically, which has some advantages, especially if it's a device that frequently needs to be rebooted, or if it's the device that, if it's a device that's more kind of meant to run in some advanced setting more professionally in production. And so for us to do this, we are first going to stop all these, ironically I have to unlock it before I can stop it again. So we're going to stop LND, and we're also going to stop Bitcoin. And the first thing we need to make is we need to make this directory here and kind of change it so that later whatever process is running Bitcoin is also able to read and write from that directory. The next thing is we're going to create a service file or a unit file. And this file tells the operating system where to find the binaries and what configuration to use and everything. And so we have that here in a way that we can just copy paste it. Just make sure to copy paste the entire thing. And we can paste it in here. And I can run you like quickly through this. So it just has a name. Later for our kind of, it has a documentation just for our references. It tells here when to start Bitcoin. So in this case, only after kind of the device comes online. So don't even bother with starting Bitcoin while the device is still offline, so that everything kind of runs in its own configuration. Here, this part tells us where the Bitcoin binary is located. So if you have installed it in a different way, if you installed it somewhere else, then this line needs to be changed. And it tells it to, like, this is called the PID file, to put this PID file into the directory we just created. The PID file kind of contains information, I believe, on like how it's running and whether it's running. And here where the configuration file is. So if you have a different username, then for example here, instead of Ubuntu, you're probably going to enter your own username. Or if you have installed Bitcoin in a different directory, then that file, that also needs to be specified somewhere else. Restart on failure. So that tells it that if Bitcoin were to somehow not be able to start, it would just try again, which in this case could also mean that if there's an error somewhere, that just Bitcoin continuously restarts. Then you have to like manually go in and first stop it and figure out what the error is. This is the user that it runs with and the user group. And what else is interesting? I actually don't know exactly how to describe this, but it's important. And so we save it with Control-O and close it with Control-X again. And now comes kind of the magical part where we enable this. And so I'm just going to copy paste this. So systemctl, that's the kind of the program or the mechanism by which the operating system decides what to run, which programs to run and when to run them. And so we're going to enable them, meaning we've just created it and now we're enabling this file immediately called Bitcoin dservice, which we have created just up there, where it was here, just created it here. And this is going to create a system link, creating a new file here, linking to our service file. So if we ever wanted to disable Bitcoin if we ever wanted to disable this configuration, then we would need to delete this file here. Press here OK. I guess I have to go Control-C to get out of there. And I believe that's everything. So this is how we can now check the status. Get this right? Yes. And it should autocomplete. And in this case, yes, it is already running. Running since exact 13 seconds ago. And whenever something is going to happen, like whether it starts or stops, it's going to get a new entry in here. So we can already test this out by just rebooting again. And hopefully, by the time we go back in, Bitcoin is so we SSH back into our machine. Still takes a while to boot up, but here we are. And now in here, we can see this is not yet started. So it's here considered loaded. Activating, starting the daemon. I think this we can just leave this here and then it's gonna update. If not, we can also see if there are logs. Yeah, so it's not yet running. It's still verifying these the blocks. You can also, in the meantime, look at how many resources it's consuming. It's about 30% of all memory, 10% of the CPU power. Some verifying these blocks rather slowly, but we'll just go back into the status. And hopefully very soon this is going to show here a minute ago. Let's see how long this takes to start. I'd love to catch the moment where it... All right, now Bitcoin is running. That took longer than I thought, but not super long. And the other important thing that we want here is the logs. So these logs are separate from the Bitcoin logs. These are the logs that indicate when the service Bitcoin has started or crashed, or let's see, here it was started for the first time. It was stopped. I believe this is because here at 6:21, this is, what time is this? This is not, is this PM? Then it's local time. So it's very confusing with computers that are sitting in different places and what time is what. Usually Bitcoin uses, as you can see up here, UTC time. So here on my node, it's already June 22. So you can see here the somewhere the system was shut down. Here you can see this boot process and this boot process. And then it started and took from 17:00. Oh, this looks confusing because I've already set it up with systemd before to try. We are going to now also enable LND. Enabling LND or the LitD process requires us to enter the password into a password file. This is also optional, so maybe I can show it off first with without this password file. So in this case, all I need to do is create the litd file and paste again the the unit contents, the unit file. And again here, I think mainly what's important is here at the top. So this process should only be started after the Bitcoin process is started. This is where the program is located, where we installed it. Again, it has a PIT file, which we place into the same directory, which is why we'd have to make a new directory, and we run it as the same user, and that's pretty much all we need. And we also register it more or less with the same command. And now, if we wanted to check the status, we can do so like this. So it's also running. We can look into the LND node, LND logs, to see at what state it is, and it should be at the, yes, so it starts now automatically, but it waits for this password. So if we now want to really start it, we still need to manually unlock it, which I think is fine. It just means that you don't get the full benefits of kind of automating this. I think it shouldn't happen too often that the node kind of crashes and restarts by itself as a whole, but theoretically that is something that could happen, and in that case you would still have to manually go into the node, and yeah, all you have to do is supply it the password. There are some minor advantages that come with not keeping the password on the device. It mainly has to do with what if the device gets powered off and then somebody were to able to steal it and take it away. Then of course, if the password is not on it, then they wouldn't be able to unlock and decrypt the wallet file. They wouldn't be able to get access to the Bitcoin. Depending on exactly what kind of like security models we have set up, if we have our device at home, for example, and we are afraid of like somebody stealing the physical device and extracting the password, then keeping the password on the device is probably a bad idea. But for the most part, I think our like security assumptions already allow anyone who has access to the machine to kind of steal our coins, right? All they have to do is like LNCLI send payment, and then they would be able to send the payments out. So the security of this device comes, for example, here from the SSH, or it comes from whatever password we have set on our computer. So in this case, I'll create a password file here under LND password. It already exists. The password is already here. I love BTC Pay. Now you know my passwords. I hope your password is a bit more secure. Luckily, this is a demo server, and I'm happy to share all of this. So in this case, there should be a bit more of a more difficult to brute force password in there for a variety of reasons. And we need to change our configuration file. So we need to go into our nano.lit.litconf file, and I'll put it here under the basic configuration, but it can really go into any line. And place this in here. So this is the configuration name called LND wallet unlock password file, and this is the absolute path to it. So instead of doing the squiggly thing, which should also work, we do the absolute path. So if your username is not Ubuntu, then you might have to change this here too, or you can try the squiggly path. And now, since I already registered, all I need to do is, what was it, systemctl. Let me check this. To manually start it, it's stop litd service, which hopefully works. And now I can start it again with start libd service. And I go back to see the logs. And in this case, the logs should not stop at lncli unlock. It should here, attempting automatic wallet unlock with password provided in file. And here, less than 2 seconds later, it says open wallet. So that worked in this case, the file. And then now everything is going to start up as expected. And the final test that I'm going to do is I'm going to just kill the machine and see if everything is running as expected without me having to check everything. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes or a few seconds before I try to access the machine again. And then really all I'm going to do is look at the log output of LND and just see how that kind of hopefully smoothly arrives at the state where it's running and the channels are online. So here are my logs, shutdown complete. This was when I closed the computer. So probably now what's happening somewhere is the Bitcoin is starting up, which if we really want to, we can also have a look at to pass the time. Where are my Bitcoin logs? Yes. So it's doing something in here. It's verifying the blocks. And as soon as kind of Bitcoin tells the system that Bitcoin is running, then LND will spin up and say, I want to run now too. Again, these verifying the last 6 blocks should be a lot faster, but can we really complain? Full self-sovereign software. All right, let's hope for this to finally start. So I think quite a few of us are running on a server. So we could also kind of show off LNbits because it's also a relatively easy installation. So there is, if you are running a system similar to this one on a server, then, and you are interested in running something like LNbits, then we could do another tutorial somewhere in the summer. LNbits is mainly fun if you want to create static LN URLs, such as like LNPay QR codes, or if you want to create your own Lightning addresses, your own self-sovereign Lightning addresses, for which you just need a domain name, or if you want to make use of many of these extensions that they have, such as like streaming sats or gambling or things like this. So this works all. This is now running, and I also expect meaning we achieved all our objectives, everything's working, and I'm going to stop the screen share for some questions that you might have. And otherwise, yes. So if you have experienced that synced to chain false thing, then first, what I'm going to recommend is just to restart it. I have seen that issue on myself as well, and I have like talked to like the LND team about it, and we are not quite sure how to resolve it. It does seem to come from like very aggressively pruning the node. So if I might ask you, MK, like how many gigabytes are you pruning your node to? Like what does it say in your config files with prune equals? Mine runs with prune equals to 16 gigabyte, which should be totally fine. But it seems that the initial sync of LND under those circumstances are a little bit flaky, and we're not quite sure why, but it seems to be some kind of process that gets stuck. You can resolve it by restarting it. What I can also recommend you is to run lncli get network info, and here you can run it here too, get network info. So while LND is syncing, you can just run this lncli get network info, wait 10 seconds, and then run it again. And while you're syncing, you should see a difference in the number of nodes synced to the chain, and you're synced by sync to the graph, and your node has knowledge of all the other nodes and all the other channels that exist in the network. And yeah, I think in my case, it got stalled like twice or 3 times. So what I can recommend to you, MK, is maybe for the initial sync, you could turn off Tor. That sped up things a little bit. And then I fear you're just going to have to like look in once a day and see if it shows sync to chain. And hopefully, by running lncli get network info once a day, you should see like a huge, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm sorry that you have to do this. It shouldn't be. Eventually, we'll get a fix up for this. At the moment, we just have to, in that initial sync process, restart it. Hopefully, not more than twice. Once it is synced to the chain, once you're synced to the, so this happens while you're syncing to the graph, right? So first your node syncs to the chain, to the Bitcoin blockchain, and that's all fine. And somehow it loses sync to the blockchain while syncing to the graph, which is a very peculiar behavior, even though the two are somewhat related, but it's not quite clear why this is happening. And so then while your node is not synced to the chain, the other sync process also completely stops. So your node no longer even attempts to learn about new nodes, about new channels. So you will notice this is happening by seeing in lncli get info, by seeing synced to chain false and synced to graph false as well. And then once you restart, you're going to notice that very quickly it says sync to chain true and sync to graph false. And while this is the case, it actually is syncing to the graph. And if it then loses, it should be both true, yeah. Eventually both should be true. But for quite a while, you are going to have to sync to both. And so it's perfectly normal that while you set up a node, it takes a while for it to show up sync to the chain. In our case, that should only be a few minutes. If you're starting up a node that has been offline for longer, or if you're starting up a node that was created a long time ago, for example, because you're recovering funds, then it could actually take a long time. But in this case, syncing to the graph is what we do. We don't expect it to take a very long time, but we are accepting of it taking like a day or two. And in that day or two, somehow it loses sync to the but as of half an hour ago, I noticed that all of the nodes that I've opened channels with so far were online. So congratulations to everyone for getting their nodes running. And I think the easiest way to kind of monitor your node and make sure it keeps running is to just once a day log into the terminal. So yeah, I would expect after 24 hours, worst case, maybe after 48 hours on a slow server, everything should be in sync with the graph. And as long as you see it synced to the chain, there should be progress in when you check the lncli get network info. Then you do expect some kind of progress there. If it says synced to chain false, I fear you're just gonna have to restart it. The easiest way to monitor the node, in my opinion, is to once a day look into terminal.lightning.engineering. So as we discussed last week, connect your node to Lightning Terminal and just once a day look into it, see if the channel's up and running. That's really all there is to it. And you can also then connect Zeus to it, and Zeus will also show whether channels are up and running, for example. As long as you're not like actively making payments, that's not like super important. It's not important that your node is up all the time. If it's offline for a week, no problem at all. Of course, it is frustrating to go find a merchant that takes Lightning or go to the coffee meetup and then suddenly realize, oh no, my node at home is offline, and not having a way to then reboot it. Do we have any more questions? If some questions do come up, as usual, don't hesitate to ask in the a good mobile wallet. I think Zeus is the best in this case, because Zeus supports this Lightning Node Connect, and the setup is relatively easy. And so I also outline it a little bit here. If you just look on this BTC Pay server. In this case, so if you're running on a VPS and you want to install BTC Pay server, then the easiest, by far the easiest, is to just only install BTC per server, and then it has a Lightning node inside of it. It is also possible to set up BTC server and then connect it to your own node, but because of how BTC server is kind of integrated with the whole like Bitcoin blockchain and everything, I think it is quite a lot of effort. So if you now already have your Lightning node and you want to put BTC Pay server on top of it, I'd say that's quite a bit of effort. It is, however, possible to, now that you have your own, so for example, I'm running a BTC Pay server. What you can do, you can just ask me for like a login to that and then connect to your own node so that any invoice created with it kind of is paid to your own node. You can also spin up a separate BTC Pay server, which is maybe what I would recommend, and then not running and then connecting to your existing Lightning node as well. So depending on what your needs are, there are a few options, but just putting it now on top of your existing node is like relatively complicated. Like there are far easier options, but these easier options either mean shutting down your existing node and moving everything to BTC Pay server, or having a separate BTC Pay server on another VPS. So LNbits is far easier to run on your existing nodes. If you want to play around with LNbits, then I do run an instance here. So all you can do is go to the site, ideally type in like your like a Telegram username or something as your name, so that in the worst case, I know how to contact you if I need to shut it down and need to send you the sats back. But you can, I mean, if you want, we can show this off now too. I can share the screen again, and I can here on the server type in Node Academy, create a wallet. You need to copy this wallet URL, which also means that this wallet later, I kind of need to delete it because you all see the wallet URL. Everybody who has access to the wallet URL has access to the funds. And then you can put some sats into this, right, by creating an invoice. And once you have sats in here, you can also play around with these extensions. So what are some interesting extensions? For example, the LNURL Pay extension that allows you to create like a pay link. That also allows you to create a Lightning address here like this. Some other extensions. So for example, since you asked about BTC Pay, one thing that's very useful here is the point of sale. So you can just create a new point of sale here, connect it to your wallet, set, say, Canadian dollars as a currency, And then you can even select like a separate wallet as your tip wallet, right? So you could even like have different wallets in there, kind of where the tips land. And now here we have 1% tip, and we can create this point of sale and open it. And so that's kind of like some of the functionality that BTC Pay provides, right? So if all you want from BTC Pay is something like this, then I just round it up. Then I would totally recommend just setting it up like this. There's not really, I'm gonna create a smaller one and actually, oh wow, somebody paid it. So now you should see sats in here. Yeah, thank you for these generous contributions. So you can see if these are, and then you can kind of send it out. You can also pass it on. Although in this case, actually, I think this might, what was it? The beer fund, Vancouver at bitdevs.ca. This should have worked. Yeah, maybe it doesn't let us create this. I guess there's something else. I could, this should let us send to Lightning addresses. I don't know why that doesn't do that. Oh, how do I get a, there's probably not enough sats in that node to really send it out. Anyway, if this is what you want from your BTC Pay, then LN bits might be totally enough, depending on there's even ways to have like on-chain payments and LN bits and things like this. All right, with these words, so announcement for next week. Eric is going to do a quick workshop next week. I'm going to be out. You're not going to hear from me, but Eric is going to show how to kind of responsibly do backups with your setup, and maybe even how to automate this backups. There's going to be some like reading that I post into the chat. A little bit more than for a regular Bitcoin wallet. And then in sometime in July, if there is interest, then we might do like a LN bits installation. All right. Thank you all. Congrats on your nodes.